So the brave arsenal's here, but are any weapons worth it? Well, I was blessed with some unbelievably good RNG on just a handful of my first drops to get some great and borderline god rolls, or at least what I thought were god rolls, on the initial drop. Today I have the Succession, the Recluse, and the Edge Transit. I'm going to quickly go over some of the rolls that I got and some rolls that you can take a look for while you're at home. I was kind of surprised at the performance of some of the weapons, for good reasons and for bad reasons. Let's start with the Recluse. The Recluse is a notoriously powerful weapon with the Master of Arms perk back in PvP as well as PvE. It dominated both, and as a primary PvP player, I expected this weapon to be not quite as good, but pretty darn powerful in the PvP space. And don't worry, we'll talk about the PvE too. But just to quickly touch on the PvP, yeah, Recluse feels pretty good. It doesn't feel like anything too crazy. Worth it, absolutely, to pick up if you don't have a good Void lightweight SMG, but not the end-all be-all for lightweight Void SMGs in particular. There have been so many great entries in the Void SMG list that it almost seems like Bungie was trying to intentionally oversaturate their market, but that's neither here nor there. The weapon is consistent, it's got decent range, it's good. It's not possibly the greatest, but it's good. Master of Arms gives a flat 15% damage bump in PvP, which feels fine, helps the weapon feel a little bit more consistent and kill ever so slightly faster if you're landing your headshots, but other than that, nothing too crazy. I think the role instead is to go for target lock, as that just increases your damage without any needed extra added trigger at all. And I don't think that the weapon needs any consistency perks such as the dynamic sway or tap the trigger. The weapon feels pretty consistent right out the get-go. Now, in the PvE space, as you can see on screen right now, is the selected role, at least according to Light.gg, for the PvE role. And this is where I have a bit of a disagreement, because I've been testing this weapon in quite a bit, and I can say that the Master of Arms feels more like the Meh-ster of Arms. I'm so sorry, please don't unsubscribe. The Master of Arms perk doesn't give enough of a damage bonus to really warrant its use. Its best use case is its ease of use. It's better at allowing you to get this damage bonus from a lot of different sources rather than just, you know, killing things in one particular way. That's its benefit. Think of it like Rampage and Harmony wrapped into one, with its overall damage brought down to compensate. Instead, I think that the Desperate Measures perk is a far better perk to go with for this slot. You don't get as much of an upfront damage bonus from the Master of Arms per shot off of just weapon kills, but if you get an ability kill, which, let's be honest, in PvE, that is not hard at all, it bumps it up significantly from the 10% to the 20%, and it can stack even further from there. Because the difficulty of accessing this perk in PvE is just simply ready to go for most builds already, I would absolutely take this over Master of Arms every single time. If you need something that just adds a little bit of Void, or if you have a volatile build, then Destabilizing Rounds is pretty good as well. Surrounded is always there too, and Frenzy is just an easier to proc version of Master of Arms in my opinion. And in the third column, Repulsor Brace absolutely makes so much sense here. Played around with it with Feeding Frenzy, played around with it with Enlightened Action, and the utility that Repulsor Brace gives is, of course, just it can't be topped. It absolutely can't be topped. And again, with abilities in PvE just being so prevalent and easy to acquire, it makes a lot of sense here. And in fact, with the Desperate Measures perk, it actually has beautiful synergy with itself, as most of your abilities from Void are going to debuff the target, and the Repulsor Brace can allow you to feed that into itself immediately, so you don't even need to think about it. Just simply ability spam the SMG. Moving right along into the Succession. In the PvP space, I had a lot of fun trying to get Discord and Recombination to work, which unfortunately did not give enough of a damage bonus to warrant its use. You're much better going with Snapshot instead of trying to get the damage bonus from the far right hand column. You're never going to need any of the other stuff in PvP. It really makes no sense at all. And it might be tempting to say, well, using Moving Target in the third column is going to be the way to go. And of course, if you want something that's consistent and up and all the time, absolutely go for that. But with the Biting Fox being a weapon that exists, as well as plenty of other fantastic kinetic sniper rifles, I don't actually think that I would go with this if I'm really trying to make the Succession feel like a unique weapon that adds something that I don't have other places in my kit. Unfortunately, the Succession for PvP doesn't really beat anything out. Its zoom is a little bit too high, its aim assist is slightly higher, but its stability is lower, so you get flinch a little bit more. I would much rather prefer the Bite of the Fox if I could get a better scope or better reticle on the thing, but that's neither here nor there. Instead, I would rather go with Discord. Yes, this odd little special ammo perk could go pretty darn hard in PvP nowadays, with special ammo being far less available and far less on the table. Whenever you get a kill with a different weapon, it boosts the stats of the current weapon of the succession and allows any kills that you get to generate or regenerate ammo, allowing you to continue to go on a sniper spree, which is great for montages. And it's just, in my opinion, a more interesting perk, and the benefit that it gives can be comparable to that moving target that you're not getting. Other than that, for PvP, yeah, I don't think that there's any surprises here. The thing that you're seeing on screen is, of course, the way to go. Any of the other damage perks are plenty sufficient, and even Demolition, if you want to keep the weapon loaded, is perfectly fine as well. Maybe even Demolition something like Focused Fury if you want to do something odd, but yeah, just stick with what's on screen. That'll suffice you. And lastly, the Edge Transit. The ever notorious trash tier grenade launcher actually has a bit of a swing to it. I'm impressed. I kind of like the Edge Transit. The rolls that this thing can get are pretty comparable to some of the best rolls that you can get elsewhere. First and foremost, the one thing that needs to be brought forward is what you're seeing on screen here, is the fact that you can have both chain reaction and bait and switch. I feel like this roll is great as a general purpose, multi-purpose tool, but I feel like it overcommits to the bit. I feel like rather there is a way to spec into this having crowd control potential without sacrificing nearly as much DPS. So of course, bait and switch works fantastic in that far right column if you're really leaning in hard on that, but giving up something like Cascade Point or Envious Assassin for the large burst of DPS that it can give out, I do not believe is the play. Instead, if you do want that little bit of crowd control, instead of running spike grenades, which I understand is a relatively big dump of your overall bonus damage, try the sticky grenades. The sticky grenades are both hilarious, and they allow you to kind of mindlessly throw down shots, especially when you have excess heavy ammo, as I'm sure that you'll have that every now and then, and especially the onslaught mode where you'll have more heavy ammo than you really need. You can just mindlessly fire the extra sticky grenades into a choke point and allow enemies to walk into it for a free bonus kill. And then you can still have that extra bit of burst DPS from either Cascade Point or from Envious Assassin on the third and fourth column. If you don't want to do that, if you want to lean in really hard on this being a crowd control tool, try this with the Full Court perk. Full Court seems to grant its bonus damage the longer that the grenade is alive before it detonates, not necessarily how long it is in the air, meaning that it will get up to its absolute maximum damage just from firing it normally, assuming you don't hit a target right away. Frenzy also works here as well, but again, my role, if I were to really hunt for this great multi-purpose tool that has really solid DPS options as well as decent crowd control, is 100% Sticky Grenade, then something like either Cascade Point or Envious Assassin, and then bait and switch. Of course, if you want to dedicate yourself purely to the DPS, then of course Spike Grenade over Sticky Grenades, and then like I said, if you want to swap for the more general crowd control tool, you have that as well. Onslaught can get a little challenging at the higher difficulties, and like I said, heavy ammo can be relatively abundant. Let me know what roles you guys have in the comments down below. I'm curious if you agree or disagree with any of my general assessments here of my playtime. Subscribe, bless your faces, deuces.